I never plan to talk about this place again. Most people only see Malacañang on television. Bright lights, polished floors, politicians in barong and suits, everyone smiling and shaking hands. They see the flags, the speeches, the ceremonies. They don't see what happens after midnight. I do. I worked the night shift as a security officer inside Malacañang Palace. 9 years of walking the same corridors, breathing the same recycled air, listening to the same old building creak like an old man trying to remember his own name. You can't work that long in a place like that and walk away unchanged. I thought I was ready. I'd done security work before, malls, office buildings, a hotel. I'd broken up fights, chased thieves, dealt with drunk guests. I wasn't scared easily. But nobody warned me that the hardest part of the night shift here wasn't intruders. It was the palace itself. Because this building remembers. It remembers everything. Every argument, every secret meeting, every promise, every betrayal. And sometimes, it shows you what it remembers. My first night was quiet. Too quiet. The palace at night has a different sound. The air conditioners hum, then cut off. The lights buzz softly. Somewhere in the distance a door closes, and the sound runs along the walls like it's looking for you. I walked back and forth along my assigned corridor near Rizal Hall, past portraits and framed photos. Famous faces watched me from the walls. Some smiled. Some didn't. After a while, the silence stopped feeling peaceful. It started feeling like someone was holding their breath. It was 1:12 in the morning when I first heard them. At first, it was just a faint echo, like someone playing an old tape in another room. Then it became clearer. Children, running, laughing, bare feet slapping against polished marble. The sound came from the far end of the hall, where the light faded into shadow. There shouldn't have been children in the palace at that hour. Even if there were families visiting, they would have been asleep, nowhere near my corridor. The laughter got closer, bouncing off the walls, filling up the empty space between the portraits. I froze. Every instinct I had told me to turn around, to call out, to say something like, "Hey, what are you kids doing out this late?" But something deeper than training, something primal, whispered, "Don't. Don't turn around. Don't answer. Just breathe." So I stayed facing forward. The laughter rushed past me. It felt like a gust of wind with no air, like a memory moving through my body. Tiny footsteps pounded the floor beside me, unseen, and then faded toward the staircase. Then, nothing. Silence slammed back into the corridor. For a long moment I just stood there, heart hammering, fingers already curled around the flashlight on my belt. I wanted to chase them, to check every door, to prove there was some explanation. But my legs refused to move. Eventually, I forced myself to finish my rounds, pretending nothing had happened. It was my first mistake, thinking I could pretend. At shift change, we sat in the cramped little room we called the mess hall, passing around a dented metal coffee pot. The older guards talked about schedules, politics, and things they had seen in other jobs. I tried to sound casual when I asked, "Hey, are there any children living inside the palace? I thought I heard kids running in the corridor near Rizal Hall." No one laughed. No one said, "You're just tired," or "You're hearing things." One of the senior guards, everyone called him Lito, set his mug down and looked at me for a long time. "First time hearing them?" he asked. I swallowed. "So, you've heard them too?" He nodded once. "If you hear children running in that hallway after midnight, you ignore them. You don't follow. You don't talk. You don't even think about them for too long. He tapped the table with his finger, one tap for each command. Why? I asked. He shrugged, but there was no humor in his eyes. The ones who pay attention don't last long here. Some ask for transfer. Some just stop coming back. HR says they resigned. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. He went back to drinking his coffee like the conversation was over. And that's when I realized something important. In most places, you get procedures, you get briefings, you get clear instructions. In Malacañang, you get warnings. No explanations, no ghost stories with neat endings. Just quiet rules passed from one tired guard to the next. Ignore the children. Keep walking. Don't invite anything closer. I told myself it had to be stress, or pipes, or some weird acoustic trick. I told myself a lot of things, but the building didn't care what I believed. The palace has its own way of teaching you, and it wasn't done with me yet. On my third week, I discovered something else about Malacañang. It doesn't like silence. When the building is too quiet, it fills the silence on its own, with sounds, with memories, with things that don't belong to your world anymore. It was around 2 a.m. when I patrolled the corridor that overlooks the river. Tall windows, heavy curtains, old wood polished so often you can almost see your reflection in it. Halfway down the hallway, I saw them. A man and a woman, standing perfectly still near the window. The man wore a traditional barong. The woman wore a white dress, like something from a photograph printed 60 years ago. Their posture never changed. They didn't shift. They didn't breathe. I approached them slowly, thinking maybe they were staff with special permission. I spoke quietly. Good evening. No reaction. They just stared out of that window into the darkness. I took one more step forward. That's when I noticed something wrong. The glass reflected the river behind them. It reflected the moonlight. It reflected me approaching. But it didn't reflect them. Where their bodies should have appeared, there was nothing, just empty space. My mouth went dry. I tried to speak again. Sir? Ma'am? Nothing. The woman tilted her head like a puppet with loose strings. The lights dimmed. I blinked. They were gone. Instantly. Silently. Without footsteps. Like the building had swallowed them. The next day I brought it up casually to one of the guards who had been there long before me. I described their clothes, their posture, the missing reflection. He nodded once. They like that window, he said. Why? I asked. He didn't answer. He just said, if they're looking outside, don't stand between them and whatever they're looking at. That view isn't meant for you. That night I added another rule to my list. Ignore the children. Don't interrupt the couple at the window. And never stand in their place. By then, I had started to understand something. Malacañang has its own ecosystem. Some things belong to the living, some things belong to the dead, and some things are stuck in between, repeating themselves like habits the building cannot forget. I thought that if I respected those boundaries, I would be safe. I was wrong. One night, around 3:30 in the morning, the radio in the CCTV room crackled. Motion detected on the main staircase, the operator said. There shouldn't be anyone scheduled there. I acknowledged the call. The staircase at night feels nothing like the staircase during the day. In daylight, It looks like a grand entrance, polished and important. At night, it looks like a throat. My footsteps echoed as I approached the landing. And then I saw him. A security guard, uniform neat, cap straight, hands clasped behind his back. For a moment, I relaxed. Maybe there was a schedule change I didn't know about. "Hey," I said quietly. "I thought I was the only one assigned here." No response. He stayed perfectly still. I descended 3 steps. "Hello, are you—" He lifted his head, and I saw my own face. Not just someone who resembled me. My face, my eyes, my features. And then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was slow, too slow, like the muscles in his face were learning how to move for the first time. The lights above flickered, and in one blink, he vanished. In an instant, there was nothing on the staircase except me and the echo of my heartbeat. The radio crackled again. "Motion signal's gone. Must have been a glitch." I forced my voice to stay level. "Area clear." Later, I told one of the older guards what I saw. He didn't look surprised. He didn't laugh. He just said, "If the palace ever shows you another version of yourself, you leave immediately. You do not let it talk. You do not follow it. You do not acknowledge it." I didn't ask why. Some things don't need explanations. So I added another rule to my list. Ignore the children. Don't interrupt the couple at the window. And if you ever see yourself in this building, you walk away before it takes your place. There's a hallway near the old medical wing that I tried to avoid as much as I could. In the daytime, it looks normal. White walls, fluorescent lights, the lingering smell of disinfectant. People walk up and down it with charts and clipboards, just another part of a working building. At night, it feels like an artery in a sleeping body. You don't go there unless you have to. One shift, a door sensor in that section started acting up. I was told to pass by, check if any door was ajar, and reset the system if needed. The second I turned into that corridor, the air changed. It felt heavier. Not colder exactly, just thicker, like I was walking through water. The overhead lights buzzed louder than usual, flickering once, then settling into a sickly white. Halfway down the hallway, I saw her. A nurse in a white uniform standing just outside one of the old treatment rooms. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Her head was slightly bowed. From behind, she looked exactly like any other nurse. "Ma'am," I called out gently. "This area is supposed to be clear at this hour. Is everything all right? Do you need assistance getting back to your quarters?" She slowly lifted her head just a little. I saw the side of her face, pale, tired, eyes cast downward. She didn't answer. I took a careful step closer, every part of my body telling me this was a bad idea. "Ma'am, it's not safe to be here alone. Let me—" That's when I looked down. Her shoes were not touching the floor. They hovered a few centimeters above it, unmoving. Not enough to be obvious at first glance, just enough to be wrong. The buzzing from the lights swelled until it was almost all I could hear. Every hair on my arms stood on end beneath my long sleeves. I took one step back. "Sensor checked," I said quickly into my radio, voice shaking more than I wanted. "Hallway appears clear." I didn't wait for a reply. I walked away, resisting the urge to run. I kept my shoulders squared, trying not to show my back fully until I reached the corner. Only then did I let myself glance over my shoulder. The hallway behind me was empty. No nurse, no shadow.
Nothing. Later, I casually asked one of the cleaning staff who had worked there long before I arrived if the medical wing had any stories. He laughed nervously and said, "They say there was a nurse who used to stay late, watching over a patient who didn't make it. Some people swear they still see her standing in that hallway at night. If you ever do, don't bother her. Just let her finish whatever it is she thinks she's still doing." That night, I added another line to my list. If someone in that hallway doesn't make any sound when they move, you should leave before they start moving at all.
Not every presence in the palace felt hostile. Some of them just felt busy. In one of the smaller kitchen areas, I would sometimes see a tall man in a chef's jacket standing at the counter, back turned to me. His shoulders moved in a steady rhythm, like he was chopping or stirring. But I never heard the scrape of a knife on a cutting board. No clink of metal, no sound of pans. The first time, I greeted him politely. He didn't respond or even flinch, as if he hadn't heard me at all. The second time, I just nodded and passed through. The third time, I didn't acknowledge him at all. I walked in, picked up what I needed, and left, trying not to think about how the same man always seemed to be standing in the exact same place, no matter the hour. One afternoon, one of the kitchen staff told me a story in a low voice. She said a chef had collapsed in that very room during a major event years ago. Heart attack. Gone before help arrived. "Sometimes we joke that he still helps when we're short-staffed," she said, forcing a smile. "But if you ever see a chef working there in the middle of the night, just pretend you didn't. Let him cook." So I did. Quiet gratitude felt safer than attention. The story that disturbed me more didn't come from me at all. It came from another employee, a woman named Riza. She told me about walking down one of the service corridors late one evening. The corridor was empty, the air heavy with the smell of polished wood and old carpet. She saw a waiter approaching, carrying a tray stacked with glasses. He was tall, his uniform spotless, posture perfect. He wore the same small, professional smile every well-trained server learns. She stepped aside, as anyone would, and said, "Good evening." The waiter nodded politely and walked past her without a sound. She thought nothing more of it, unless she reached the pantry and casually asked the others, "Hey, who's the new tall waiter? I just saw him in the corridor. He looks like he's been here forever." The room went quiet. One of the older staff members asked her to describe him, down to the shape of his face and his height. When she finished, someone opened a drawer and pulled out an old staff photo, edges yellowed. Was it this man? They asked. It was him. Same uniform, same smile, same height. "Yeah," she said. "That's him. When did he start?" "He didn't," one of them replied. "He died years ago. Car accident. He never came back to work." Riza laughed at first, thinking they were teasing her. No one laughed with her. She doesn't walk that corridor alone anymore. And if she ever sees that waiter again, she has one rule. Even if he greets her by name, she does not answer. After that, I avoided that hallway at night too. Because every building has its dangers. Ours weren't just burglars or emergencies. Ours were people who used to work there, and somehow never stopped. If you've never worked a night shift in a place like that, it's easy to think all of this sounds like superstition. An old building, overactive imaginations, stories that grow in the retelling. But Malacanang's ghosts don't behave like the ones in movies.
They don't slam doors or throw objects across the room. They don't scream in your face. They don't drag chains down the hallway. They simply act like they still belong there. The children run their endless games. The couple keeps their silent watch by the window. The nurse stands guard outside a room that no longer has patients. The chef works in a kitchen that no longer needs him. The waiter keeps walking his route, tray perfectly balanced, long after his shift should have ended forever. Most of them don't seem to want anything from us. They are loops, routines that never got the message that time moved on. In a strange way, they're almost gentle. Almost. Because even the gentle ones become dangerous if you forget what they are. If you forget that you're the visitor in their space. The only presence that never felt like a loop, the only one that felt like it was paying attention to me, was the thing that wore my face, the double on the staircase. That didn't feel like a memory repeating. That felt like an invitation. And I had the sinking feeling that if I ever accepted it, if I ever walked toward that smiling version of myself instead of backing away, something would take my place on the night shift, and no one would notice the difference, except me, wherever I ended up. So I followed the rules. I ignored the children, even when their laughter moved right past my ear. I didn't interrupt the couple, no matter how much they unsettled me. I didn't speak to the nurse again. I thanked the chef silently. I avoided the waiter's corridor, and I never, ever stepped down another stair when I saw my own face looking up. By the time I left Malacañang, my job description had nothing to do with the contract I signed. On paper, I was there to protect people from threats. In reality, I was protecting myself from a building that remembered too much. I never wrote my rules down. I kept them in my head, like prayers you say automatically before doing something dangerous. Rule 1. If you hear children running in an empty hallway after midnight, you don't follow. You don't call out. You keep your eyes forward and let the sound pass through you. Rule 2. If you see a man and a woman staring out of a window and the glass shows everything except them, you don't stand between them and the outside. That view isn't meant for you. Rule 3. If the palace ever shows you another version of yourself, on the stairs, in the glass, at the end of a corridor, you turn around and you leave. You don't wait to see if it smiles. You don't wait to see if it speaks. Rule 4. If someone in the medical hallway doesn't touch the floor, you don't walk closer to check. You pretend you didn't see. You let her keep her watch. Rule 5. If you pass a kitchen and a chef is working in silence, knife moving with no sound, you don't disturb him. You nod once in your mind and walk on. Rule 6. If a waiter who died years ago ever greets you by name in the corridor, you keep walking. You do not give whatever is wearing his face the satisfaction of hearing your voice. People think ghosts haunt abandoned places, but some of them haunt the centers of power just as easily. They slip between meetings and ceremonies, between red carpets and state dinners, drifting through walls that have seen more than any living witness ever will. Most people will only ever see Malacañang under bright lights. They'll never feel what it's like to stand there at 3 a.m, when the building finally feels like itself, when the photographs on the walls seem to breathe, when the silence is full of footsteps you can't track, when a pair of children's laughs echo down a hallway that's supposed to be empty, and you have to decide whether you still believe in rules. I survived 9 years on the night shift because I followed mine. If you ever find yourself walking those halls after midnight, I hope you remember them too. Because in that place, not everything on duty is alive. And not everything that's dead is done working.
I'm not here to convince you that any of this was real. I'm just here to tell you what happened. And if you made it all the way to this point, then you deserve at least one truth. My name is Mateo. I know some of you will doubt me. I know others will try to explain it away. But there are a few of you watching right now who've seen something like this yourselves. And to those people, you know I'm not lying. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing this because I hope someone out there understands what I went through, or at least what's still following me. And if you made it to the end of my story, tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? I'll be reading every reply, because this isn't over. Not for me, not for them, and maybe not for you either.